Were you aware that giving the thumbs up sign is considered offensive in several other countries? Well, if you didn't, you are not alone. This was something I learned about in my textbook, Looking Out, Looking In. Not all countries communicate the same way we do, and I found that to be very interesting. This led our group to researching cultural differences. We focused on 4 cultures: Yupik, which is a form of Eskimo, Chinese, Somali, and Japanese. Like me, many of my other classmates are in the healthcare field and thought this would be a good subject to learn about since we encounter different cultures on a daily basis. It is imperative to learn how to communicate effectively with different cultures in order to avoid offending somebody. This was our goal for the project. My role in this project was creating a project plan, doing in-depth research on the Somali culture, completing a Works Cited page, and adding our information into the brochure. I found a lot of useful information on Somali culture on the Ethnomed website. First, I will start with the Yupik culture. When an Eskimo speaks, one should avoid eye contact and look down. This shows respect in that you are listening to what they have to say. They also believe a person should not speak more than needed. So if you do not have anything worthwhile to say, you're better to not say anything at all. Another difference is Eskimos say yes by raising their eyebrows. One should avoid using sarcasm and irony because this is not understood by them. They are also not competitive people and do not like to be challenged. Healthcare providers should be aware that they would rather be offered natural medicines before the alternatives. Also, repeating oneself is important because they like to make sure they understood the other person correctly. The next culture we looked at was the Chinese. It's important to not maintain eye contact with these people. Also, when responding to a Chinese person, one should nod their head as this is a sign of respect. Things healthcare providers should keep in mind when caring for a Chinese patient are to use the metric system. This is what they are familiar with. Also, offer hot liquids to patients when they are sick because they do not like cold liquids. Chinese people value family, and it's very important to include family members when making decisions. When speaking, make sure you do not speak too fast because they do not like to ask a person to repeat themselves. They prefer less touching, so the provider should stick to handshaking only. It's also important to know that they value respect so much, so they may have a hard time saying no to a provider. Do not be surprised if a patient tries to get to know you before getting down to business. They like to get to know a person and may ask questions specifically about your family. Lastly, Chinese people may not appear to be in pain, even though they are, because they like to show great self-control. The third culture we looked at is Somali. Somali is a country found in Africa, and their common religion is Islam, and they follow Islamic traditions. Aunt, uncle, brother, sister, and cousin are used when addressing family members and friends. Which term to use is determined by the other person's age. Healthcare providers should know that Somali people use their right hand when greeting others, eating, writing, and performing other daily tasks. The right hand is considered clean in their culture. Also, it is not appropriate for men and women to touch each other. Men only shake men's hands, while women only shake women's hands. They will more than likely prefer to have a provider of the same gender. Also, if a Somali patient likes a doctor, they are likely to refer their friends to this provider. A major difference in Somalia is they do not have confidentiality laws like HIPAA. When giving a poor prognosis, they actually want their family to be informed instead of the patient. Also, when a patient comes in due to an illness, they expect to be prescribed a medication. If a medication is not appropriate for the illness, the provider should explain why. Somali people may be afraid of our medical technology, so the provider should explain everything well. This will gain the patient's trust. Lastly, we researched the Japanese culture. One should not speak loudly or directly. While Americans like to get to the point, Japanese like to hint at issues. Also, being humble is very important to these people. Healthcare providers should know that it is impolite to blow your nose in public in front of a Japanese. Punctuality is also very important to these people, so if a provider is running behind, it is vital to make an apology. Finally, they are also very comfortable with silence and are a culture who value nonverbal communication over verbal communication. I hope this presentation helped you learn how to communicate effectively with other cultures. While this was geared towards healthcare providers, this information can be useful to anyone since we have such a diverse population in the United States. Thank you so much for listening, and does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, well thank you very much.